Listen, if you've ever felt that modern life, the constant digital overload, the chronic stress, that never-ending attention fragmentation is just slowly draining your vitality, I promise you, you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep. We're going to bridge the gap between your micro-mental health, your cognitive performance, and your cellular biology to uncover exactly how your body's most fascinating communication network actually functions. It's going to be a wild ride.
Okay, let's jump right in by completely shattering a massive modern myth. You've probably heard that psychological stress is, all in your head, right? Well, for decades, traditional medicine separated mental health from physical biology. But emerging science reveals something totally startling. Your emotional resilience, your capacity for deep work, and even the success of your sleep optimization are actually heavily dictated by a microscopic ecosystem living right inside your digestive tract.
So, here is our syllabus for today's masterclass on restoring systemic health. We're going to hit the gut-brain microbiota axis, how stress physically breaks the gut, the vagus nerve highway, psychobiotics, neuromodulators, and finally, how we actually go about healing the whole system.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the gut-brain microbiota axis, or what we call the tridirectional network. Let's lay down the foundational science.
Historically, when we talked about the gut-brain connection, we mostly just thought about getting butterflies in your stomach before a big presentation. But there's been a massive paradigm shift in the science. These microbes, they aren't just passive passengers along for the ride. They're active modulators. This is a continuous, tridirectional loop connecting your central nervous system, your enteric nervous system, and literally trillions of resident microbes. And get this, these bacteria are manufacturing the exact metabolites that cross the blood-brain barrier to dictate your focus, your sleep architecture, and your mood every single day.
Moving right along to Section 2, how stress breaks the gut. This is where we look at the downward cascade.
Now, this biological cascade is brilliant, honestly, because it perfectly illustrates the downward spiral where a psychosocial stress literally, physically, degrades your intestinal barrier. Think about it. When you experience chronic stress, maybe from an overwhelming, hyper-connected modern work environment, your brain actually perceives an existential threat. That's step 1. That threat initiates step 2, the release of a hormone called CRH. This hormone travels straight down to your gut, kicking off step 3 by triggering your immune mast cells. And finally, in step 4, those degranulating mast cells start damaging the tight junctions of your intestinal wall. That is what leads to what we commonly call leaky gut.
Let's talk a bit more about CRH, corticotropin-releasing hormone. Think of this as your body's physical fire alarm. This little 41 amino acid peptide is essentially the smoking gun that connects a stressful, fragmented thought directly to a physical wound in your intestine. When CRH binds to receptors on your gut's immune cells, it causes them to explode or degranulate. They release this massive storm of inflammatory chemicals that quite literally break down your mucosal walls. That allows bacteria to leak right into your bloodstream, and suddenly your systemic inflammation just skyrockets. And this next clinical finding, it absolutely blew my mind. It proves that stress-induced leaky gut is a physical, preventable mechanism. Check this out. In controlled human trials, researchers had subjects do public speaking, which is incredibly stressful for most people, and as expected, their gut permeability spiked. But when they pre-treated those same people with a mast cell stabilizer, basically a drug that stops those immune cells from exploding, the stress-induced damage was completely blocked. Think about that for a second. Your thoughts create chemistry, and that chemistry directly dictates your cellular aging.
Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the vagus nerve highway. This is the upward rescue.
So, when we talk about healthy aging and longevity, controlling systemic inflammation is basically the holy grail. Enter the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. This is your body's built-in fire extinguisher. Your vagus nerve acts as the ultimate peacekeeper here. It actually releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine directly into the gut microenvironment. And when that happens, it signals your resident macrophages to immediately stop producing TNF-alpha, which is a highly destructive inflammatory cytokine, and it halts tissue damage right in its tracks.
And this is exactly why we are rapidly entering a whole new future of health optimization. Instead of just relying on medications, we're seeing the emergence of wearable technologies that use transcutaneous auricular vagus nerve stimulation, or TVNS for short. Basically, by electronically activating this nerve through your ear, you can support your natural digestive rhythms, physically lower systemic cortisol, and get this powerful, completely drug-free intervention to help optimize deep recovery and your circadian sleep architecture. It is a total game changer.
Let's pivot now to Section 4, Psychobiotics for Mental Health.
We're looking at microbiome-targeted interventions here.
Yes, you heard me right. Specific bacterial strains can directly influence your emotional processing. The term psychobiotics represents a revolutionary leap in modern medicine. It forces us to look at the microbiome not just as a digestive aid, but as a functional component of human psychiatry. We are actively learning that what you feed your gut directly dictates your resilience to anxiety, your ability to sustain attention, and your overall capacity to handle extreme cognitive loads during deep work. And if you look closely at the mechanisms of these psychobiotics, it's fascinating. Bacteria like Bifidobacterium longum are essentially microscopic manufacturing plants. They literally synthesize the critical molecules your brain requires to feel calm and focused. We're talking GABA, dopamine, serotonin, literally the exact same neurotransmitters targeted by modern mood-stabilizing drugs. On top of that, they produce short-chain fatty acids that cross into the brain to extinguish neuroinflammation. They actively dampen how hyperreactive your brain's fear center, the amygdala, gets when you're facing modern stressors.
Now, this isn't just theoretical pie-in-the-sky biology. In randomized clinical trials, it took a mere 12 weeks of psychobiotic supplementation to significantly improve vitality, social functioning, and perceived stress in healthy adults. Just 12 weeks. By recalibrating their gut flora, these participants experienced a real enhancement in daily energy and a measurable drop in subclinical anxiety. It proves that micro-mental health interventions yield absolutely massive dividends for our overall quality of life.
All right, moving to Section 5, neuromodulators for gut pain. Let's talk about how we fix broken signaling.
It is so vital to understand this next point. Doctors prescribe low-dose antidepressants for conditions like irritable bowel syndrome, not because the pain is made up or just in your head, but because these medications physically repair broken neural signaling. You see, when chronic stress overloads your system, the nerves in your gut become locked in this state of hypervigilance. Normal digestion suddenly starts feeling incredibly painful. Central neuromodulators step in and act directly on the gut-brain axis to quiet those hypersensitive pain signals and restore normal motility.
And this brings us right to actionable, personalized medicine. Clinical specialists actually select a neuromodulator based on a patient's highly specific symptom profile. It's basically a genius biological hack. For instance, if someone suffers from severe abdominal pain and diarrhea, tricyclic antidepressants are highly effective because doctors are actually leveraging their mild constipating side effect. Conversely, if a patient has anxiety-driven constipation, an SSRI might be used instead, because its tendency to loosen stools directly treats the primary gut symptom while it simultaneously calms the brain.
Now check out this number, 4.5. In the realm of medical research, clinical efficacy is measured by something called the number needed to treat. And for TCAs improving global IBS symptoms, that number is an incredibly low 4.5. This is phenomenal clinical proof, guys. It means that for every 4.5 patients treated with low-dose neuromodulators, one experiences a complete, significant global improvement in their symptoms. It completely validates that targeting the neural connection between the brain and the gut is an overwhelmingly successful biological strategy. Finally, we've reached Section 6, healing the whole system. Let's synthesize everything we've learned in this masterclass.
Because at the end of the day, true systemic health requires a fully integrated approach. You literally cannot outsleep a fundamentally broken gut barrier, and you definitely cannot just supplement your way out of toxic stress. Whether you're utilizing neuromodulators to fix acute pain, psychobiotics to rebuild your microbial ecosystem, vagus nerve stimulation to halt aging inflammation, or really dialing in your intuitive eating habits, it is all one singular, unbroken chain. Brain health affects stress, stress affects the gut, and the gut affects your longevity. It's all connected. I am absolutely obsessed with this quote from our source material because it completely redefines what it means to be human. Psychological functioning is an embodied process. We are not just a brain piloting a meat suit. We are a complex, symbiotic superorganism. Our mental health, our ability to perform deep, focused work, and our ultimate trajectory for healthy aging, they are all inextricably linked to the trillions of microscopic organisms residing within us and the neurohormonal highways that bind us all together.
So, I want to leave you with a final, provocative question that might just keep you up tonight. If your psychological stress can physically alter your gut bacteria, and your gut bacteria can chemically alter your thoughts, who is really in control here? As you go about your week, optimizing your routines and feeding your body, just remember the profound, incredible complexity of your gut-brain axis. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it fundamentally changes the way you look at your own biology. Catch you next time.